Hello, hello.
Hey,
Well, happy to have you all here after that nice long week of rest. I hope you guys are rared up and ready because we have here with us Lisson of Are You My Cousin? And she's going to be our featured guest this week. So
thanks for having me, Mindy. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited too. I can't wait to get for us to get out into your branches. It's going to be a little fun. I'm going to go ahead and tell the people that are our usual watchers out here real quick what WikiTree is, and then we're going to go ahead and do your intro, Lisa.
Okay.
WikiTree is a community of genealogists who work together on a single family tree. In other words, we collaborate to grow an accurate global tree that connects us all, and it's free. The WikiTree Challenge is our year long event, part of our year of accuracy, where each week a team of WikiTreeers takes on a genealogy stars tree, and we work to make it more accurate and complete than it is anywhere else. Our goal is to improve our accuracy on WikiTree, make more family connections, and make more friends, and that we certainly have. So let's go ahead and take a look at. Oh, look at you,
Oh,
Lisa.
oh, me. Surprise.
Surprise. And this, I just pulled a little information there. It says you're passionate about genealogy and all things related to family history. Now, you specialize in North Carolina and Southern Virginia genealogical research through your Are You My Cousin blog. Provide genealogy researchers with education and out of the genealogy box inspiration for successfully reaching for their ancestors. And, I know there's just more and more people out there that are getting into the genealogy bug. They're catching it and they need all the help they can get sometimes. So, go ahead and ask you a question here. A couple of
Sure.
questions. What got you interested in genealogy?
Well, it's interesting because it was about this time of year, one year when I got into genealogy. So I actually did grow up knowing all of my grandparents. I knew some of my great grandparents. I knew a lot of aunts and uncles. So I kind of grew up hearing things. But to be honest, I really wasn't into it at that, as a kid. But years ago when my children, who are actually now young adults in their mid 20s, were young, it was August. We live in North Carolina, and it was too hot to even go to the swimming pool because the water was too hot. So they decided they wanted to Google themselves. So we started Googling and playing on the computer, and we started Googling. They wanted to Google them their last name. They wanted to know if they were related to somebody famous, of course. And of course, as children will do. But we did actually find very quickly some relatives. And so we started corresponding back and forth. These were on my husband's side of the family, and it just took off from there. And I kind of left the kids in the dust, so to speak. But hopefully they'll come back around at some point. They'll come back around to it. But they did periodically. But that's really kind of how it started, having heard stories, but just never really taken the time to look at it. And so that's really it. I mean, it was that kind of um, serendipitous that I did it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, if you had to pick one ancestor as being a favorite, who would it be?
Oh gosh, I know that, that's always such a hard thing. So I would probably, because it changes, quite frankly. I think my favorite probably though would be a gentleman by the name of James Harwood. He was my fifth great grandfather, actually out of Wake County, North Carolina. And I think he's always been kind of my most intriguing and favorite ancestor because that line was really the first one that I did. I didn't tie into anybody else's research. That was the one that I did. I really cut my teeth on genealogy, learning that Howard family line, learning that the name wasn't always Howard, that it was actually Harwood, and that that was one and the same. And so that he's my favorite. And there's a lot of, I was able to find good documentation on him, kind of solve a couple mysteries along the way. But yeah, I would say he's my favorite. But lately, he'll always probably be my favorite. But I'm really been fascinating with the women in my family tree. I, I just have such a passion currently over the last year or two where I'm really focusing on the women in my family tree and telling their stories.
And it's so much harder to find records for them, and especially in certain eras, they really weren't of any importance, unfortunately. Although, who was going to hold the family together if it wasn't the woman there? And
Right.
I think it's harder to tell their story, but yes, just as important because of that. Now, do you have any interesting stories you want to share with our viewers?
Oh yeah. So one day, I was actually doing some on-site research, which I absolutely love to go to a courthouse to do research, or in archives, of course. And I was down in the basement with my dad had gone along for the trip with me. He is not a genealogist; he's an engineer, which actually is very good because he really um, makes me prove everything to him because he's got that engineering mind. We're a great team. So we're down in the bottom of the this courthouse, the basement of the courthouse, and we come across this grand jury document that one of the courthouse workers. He's a volunteer. He's there to help genealogists, and it was my fourth great grandparents who were being brought up to before the grand jury because they've been living in adultery, committing adultery and living in sin. And so this was dated 1848. But here's the kicker: they'd been together since the 1820s. And we had assumed they got married, but I
Wow.
could never find a marriage record for them.
Oh,
But
wow.
in the 1820s, okay, sometimes you don't find it. We're talking rural Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason I didn't find that marriage certificate because they never married. And when I found that out, I was able to, I started digging into it. I started getting into more of the court records to find out what was going on. And sure enough, it was it is well documented. This couple never married. She was a widow. She apparently was in love with Langley, but he was a gambler,
Oh.
and she had some property at that point, and she did not want to lose it. And so they had 6 kids together. I think 6. I've lost count, but they had a number of children together. But it was finally when the Halifax County, Virginia Chancery Court records were digitized by the Library of Virginia. When those became available to search publicly online, that's what broke the case for me. And it is documented in record, deposition after deposition. Couple never married.
Now, are these North Carolinian relatives, are they Quakers or?
No, no, I actually don't have any Quakers. And this couple was actually in Southern Virginia. But I mean, honest, all these North Carolina, Southern Virginia ancestors, they were crossing that border back and forth. I actually don't have Quaker ancestors, which is when you think about the number of North Carolina lines I have, it's a little bit surprising. But no, mine were typically Protestant. They were typically Baptist, something along those lines. So yeah.
Yeah, I only ask because we've had a few guests so far that have had in North Carolinian ancestors, but they were all Quakers,
I
and
wish
that
mine were
was
Quakers.
yeah, and that's they have incredible records. They really do, and it was interesting too. The people that even before they got married, like they had to have two well-known, spoken of people from the church go and check them out and make sure it's okay for them to get married, and they
Exactly.
they documented all that. So you had a lot of great records.
I know. I often say I wish they were Quakers so I could have those records.
Yeah. I know. I'd like to have some in my tree. I haven't found them yet. Now, when did you first discover WikiTree?
I think I discovered it. I honestly, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I discovered it pretty early into when it was created. But I never really did a ton over there with it. I was honestly struggling just to keep up with my own tree, with one tree to be able to try to keep it up in multiple places. It was such a struggle, and I was overwhelmed with building the blog that I never did a ton with it. But I've
Yeah.
always known it's been out there.
Now, what are your current toughest brick walls?
So I'd say my one of my toughest brick walls is actually one of my female ancestors. Her name is oh gosh, Joanna Barrett. And the hard part with Joanna is that she was born in 1824 in Ireland. She is a documented Irish immigrant that came over, and I kind of narrowed her down to arriving in America around 1851-ish. And she has a daughter also named Joanna, so that gets confusing. And younger Joanna was born in America. Some records say DC, some say Virginia, some say North Carolina, but those census records, I'm pretty sure, are wrong on that. But so I have a birth year on her, so that kind of narrowed it down as to when I think she ended up over here. But the interesting thing is the family oral history states that Joanna Barrett and her husband, and we don't know his name, came over from Ireland. She was pregnant and had the child when she got here. But it doesn't really line up, and because the husband died on the ship. But it's not lining up for me for when I find.
Wow.
I cannot find anything to support that story. If anything, I'm getting sense that the younger Joanna may have been born out of wedlock. And then the other problem is younger Joanna uses a different surname sometimes of Lyon, and I can't. I've run all kinds of simulations as far as was the first Joanna was her surname Barrett? Was that a married name? Was it a maiden name? Was it a first marriage? Was it it was the story of the husband dying on the ship, and that she preserved the husband in a pickle barrel or whiskey barrel. That's the only variation in the oral history.
Oh,
Some say it
wow.
was a pickle barrel, some say it was rum, and that she said, I don't know what she did with him when she got here, if that's even true. But so she's definitely, I cannot figure out how my Irish immigrant ancestor ended up in Surrey County, North Carolina. She married Richard Wilmot, and she is done. I'm 17 degrees from Howard Butterworth. Whoa. So I don't really know. I'm desperate to figure out how she ended up in North Carolina. I don't know where she entered at. I don't know how she ended up there. I don't know if she spent time in Virginia before she ended up in Surrey County. I cannot figure out how she ended up married to William Richard Wilmot, because I cannot figure out where their paths would have crossed to put them close enough. I can't figure out why they were close enough to each other physically, in the same location to be able to do that. So she's one of them. And then I have another one. His name is Jesse Haley, and I haven't looked at Jesse in ages. He's in Halifax County, Virginia. This is kind of a classic that I hear from a lot of my readers when they'll tell me their research problems. I can document him very well. I can document him, that Haley line, all the way back in that Halifax County, Virginia area. And it's pretty solid all the way back through Jesse. But I cannot figure out who his parents were. I've got his marriage. I've tracked him through the tax records. I've literally put him together year by year. I'm only missing 9 years of his life. And those are when he's a young child.
Wow.
And then, because I know when he was born, but I cannot get him any further back. I'm suspecting that his father may have died when he was very, very young, and the mother may have remarried. I'm not 100% sure, based on some of the records I was seeing in the tax records and where he's listed, because there are a lot of Haleys in that area, and he does not appear in any of their records.
Oh, wow.
So something seems off to me. A lot of trees, other trees will say, oh, he's the son of, or so and so Haley, and it's I've never proved it. I mean, I've actually disproved it. So it's he's just kind of hanging out there, and I don't know why. I don't know why he's hanging out there.
Okay, now what about Miss Emma Della Thomas?
Okay, so we were talking about Emma earlier. So Emma Della Thomas is my second great grandmother, and she was married to we called him Grandpa Suggy, but Suggs Howard, and Alan Suggs Howard. And in my tree on Ancestry, actually, you will see that I have her father. I can't remember who her father is off the top of my head. Oh, her father being Shepherd, and her mother being Mary. I think it was Mary Thomas. And you'll notice that she went by her mother's name, and that's well documented. We have the family Bible, so we do know that. And so she uses her mother's name. Emma was illegitimate, and that is common knowledge throughout the family that's been passed down. She was, it's also confirmed through her birth record that they don't, not a birth record, on her death record, her husband
Right.
gave the information and he said, I don't know the husband, I don't know who her father was. Okay, that's all official because there is a lot of oral history among several other Howard lines in that area that state who her father was his name was Lamar Shepard, and that was common knowledge. Now we have no record of that, no record of that. I have been able to place Emma's mother and her suspected father in the same place. They went to the same church. They're buried in the same churchyard. They lived practically beside each other. I mean, so I've got a lot of circumstantial evidence, a lot of oral history, but I have nothing that actually proves her. The problem is on Ancestry, when I did that, I know it's confusing probably, is because that is old, early research, and I did not, it's before Ancestry had the ability for us to tag our ancestors. So typically I would go through and, tag somebody unverified or, only known through family stories, or I would somehow tag that to indicate that was, an illegitimate birth and, what we might know about it. And it's such old research. I hadn't gone back to it and corrected it. So that may have caused some people some issues.
Well, it'll give people something to work on along with everything else. So
I know. Okay, something.
but we did have some people that definitely had noticed, and they were like, okay, so are we missing part of the story or what's going on with this?
You're just missing that oral history piece of the story. And so yeah.
And hopefully we can get some of that added into the WikiTree. That is one thing I like, is that white space we have. We can get in there and try and bring the people back to life, but we can add more details that we find in the sources. We can add research notes, so you can explain things like that, why the surnames aren't matching or are matching.
I haven't gone back to look to see if there's any DNA connection there. And last time I checked, which has been a long time ago, I didn't see anything, but that doesn't mean there's not something there now that I probably need to go check my DNA reports and see.
Yeah, that stuff updates all the time. It's crazy. Now, I was reading your blog on avoiding critical genealogy mistakes in research, and that's one thing I learned early on too. Sometimes if the proof isn't there, it's a reason, and you really have to just like step back and sometimes start fresh, and look at something with a new set of eyes. Besides that, what is something you would recommend to budding or new family historians?
I think if you're just starting out, the best thing that I tell people is not to overlook what is already known in your family. I know a lot of times maybe we're not living as close and maybe it's a little hard to get to, and it's so tempting, and I've done it, hit the major databases online, go through the census records, the vital records and all of that. And definitely do that. But don't overlook what might already be known in the family. So I had mentioned earlier that, when we were talking about my ancestor, James Harwood, my favorite ancestor. Well, the interesting thing is that surname eventually it waffled back and forth and became Howard on my side of the family. On other sides of the family, it stayed Harwood. We have no idea. There was no evidence that anybody sat down and said, okay, yeah, we don't like them, we're going to be Howards now. I mean, it literally would flip-flop. As late as my great-grandfather, that name would flip-flop around. But nobody had ever told me. I didn't know that. I was researching. So when I finally figured out that this name thing was going on, and that we were Howards, but we were actually Harwoods and all that. And honestly, I'm not even sure what the original was. I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, guess what? Did you know? Your maiden name was not always Howard. It was Harwood. And she went, we didn't tell you that. Do you know how many hours I spent trying to I was doing genealogy research, but it never occurred to me to ask about that.
Right.
Kind of thing. So I would encourage new folks, don't overlook what is known in the family. It doesn't matter if the oral history is accurate. I highly suspect that the oral history about my Irish fourth great or third, fourth great grandmother coming over, putting her husband in a whiskey barrel. I really suspect that might not be true, but it's a great story. People remember it. People know who she was. Um, so it's important to get those little pieces of the puzzle. It sort of tells me something about her because she would have been the one spreading that story probably initially. And so I think she was probably kind of a spitfire, I think.
Little
I like to think.
firecracker.
Yeah. So that would be one of my big things. And then the other thing that I like to recommend when you've been researching for a little while in your stop is to stop and go back to your research and basically redo it or reanalyze everything. Because as you get a little bit down the road, and you don't even have to get that far down the road of your genealogy and growing that tree, when you go back to old records, you start to recognize people that, oh, I didn't realize, they were the neighbors in this census, or they were the
Right.
neighbors, wow, they always seem to appear right next to them in all the records. So names that didn't mean much to you in the beginning, make a note of them. You can leave them on the back burner for a while, but go back to them when you get stuck, because you're probably going to find something that'll help.
Yeah, and we do definitely try and do, at the very least, a whole family approach. Get all the siblings and all the kids and look at their records too. Because
Hmm.
sometimes when you're stuck, those things will pop up and you get to see like those surname changes, or all of a sudden the seventh child, for some reason listed their grandmother or something and nobody else did. I mean, you never
Right.
know what you're going to find in those records.
Oh
Um,
man, you're so fun.
they are asking about pictures. We do always ask if
Mhm.
you have family pictures that we can use to dress up the profiles on WikiTree, because we do like to put our bling on.
Yeah, I'm good with that because I don't have any of the tree. I don't have any photos on my ancestry tree that are not that are of living people, so that's fine for me. Um, the reason my tree is private over on ancestry is because I was working on it, and because I was doing some changes with it, I was having people copying the incorrect information. So I was like, oh, it's getting out there. So I mean, I just encourage people, and people were actually loading my photos to other people's tree, which I didn't have a problem with, but I was like, if you want the picture of my grandmother, we probably need to talk. So it was a way I wanted people, I always, people request, I'm happy to give them access to the tree. It's not a problem. I just was,
Yeah.
because it was such a tree in progress, and things were getting out and getting copied incorrectly, that I was trying to keep it um, as accurate as
A little
possible.
more contained. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm perfectly happy to share my tree. That's not a problem.
That would be great. Yeah, and as we're working, we do like to refer to the guest primary tree, just to make sure we're not going too far off track.
Mhm.
And if we find something where we think, oh well, she says Tom's wife is this, but we think it's that. If there's a difference like that, then we know to hone in and really get a nice small group of people together and everybody looks at it,
Mhm.
to see if there really is a difference, or if maybe we just misunderstood one of the sources. So it's really good to have it as a reference. So, what do you expect overall out of the WikiTree challenge?
I'm really hoping for some new clues on Joanna Barrett. I would love to get some new clues on that Joanna Barrett, that Jesse Haley, those Jesse Haley lines. And then I have one, my Elliot line is actually you guys have probably seen that already. I have an ancestor, and his name, this is a wonderful name. His name is King Elliot. Is that not
I
the
loved that.
Isn't that
Yes.
a cool name? So I actually suspect that King was probably, because there were King is a surname that was common in the area. So I actually suspect that that is like a family name somewhere in there. But yeah, if you guys find any clues for King
I
Elliot,
said his parents had big aspirations for him. And
yes,
then
yeah.
it was a little curious. I know,
Mhm.
back in certain eras, there were a lot of like mercy and patience and, virtues used as names, but you had a lamentation.
Yeah, that's actually just something I had picked up recently, and I think that's a pretty good one, but I honestly am not as familiar with that particular line quite yet. It's sort of one of those that somebody had recently found something, and so I was trying it out to see how that was going to fit in.
Yeah, those are just interesting, and sometimes you do want to find out if it was maybe a family name from further back where you haven't gone back in your branches yet, or something.
Exactly, because I have enough Marys and Johns, and I've done. You guys have probably seen it. I, I think it's pretty. I think I don't know if I've updated everything on the White family line. You guys don't need to look at the White family line just because it's been done. I may not have it all accurate in there, but it's been done quite a ways back. But that one, there were, when you research John White in colonial North Carolina and Virginia, that's not fun. I have a
Yeah.
research. I had a research friend and he's unfortunately passed away, but he and I worked for years on that one, and we got a long ways back on that one. We were so excited. We had DNA evidence, and actually, we weren't whites after all. It was a marriage, and a remarriage, and the kids taking a stepfather's surname. So we actually were Sweeneys, or McSweeneys. So.
Yeah, and I feel for you there. I have a line, the surname is Green. So, you
Hey,
try
there are a
and
lot of
look online or in the newspapers and it's like the green fields of, and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. The
there are a
green
lot of those down
grass.
in that Halifax County, Mecklenburg County, Virginia area too. And we see first names as Green.
Oh, wow.
I'll see that. I've seen that several times in those early 1800 years.
They definitely had interesting ways of picking names on some of them. Oh, and here you see, we like our toys on WikiTree.
Oh,
We love the connection finder and relationship finder and all that.
oh,
So
cool.
everybody's been looking, we've all been looking to see how close we are to you. And
I've
then,
been seeing that pop up. I was like, how are
yeah.
they doing that?
Yeah, because we can go to any profile and say relationship to me, and it'll say you're not related or your 14th cousin, 2 times removed, whatever. Some of them are really distant, but they've improved it recently. So you used to only be able to look within a certain amount of generations, and
Mm-hmm.
now you can go like way out. I can find out who my 20th cousin is from, you know,
Oh,
I
wow.
can look at all the presidents and see how I'm related to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just some of the fun things we do. But one of the things that, of course, filling out these branches does is it improves the connections. So you might be 14th cousins now, but if we
Mm-hmm.
keep making those branches spread out, it might turn out you're really only 9th cousins or 4th cousins. And those
Mm-hmm.
matches just weren't on there. Connections weren't on there. So we like to do that. We look at it at the beginning and then we look at the end to see how much closer we got, or if at all.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's just kind of a different way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot
Just,
of fun to do that, I think. I like that,
just
the greenberry.
greenberry.
uh,
That's
uh,
awesome.
that reminds me because in Surrey County, where a lot of my white family is migrated out there, there's also a surname that's popular. It's called Snow, and you see names like Frost Snow and Snow White, and just
Right.
it's really funny. Yep, those are really super fun to get into those.
Okay.
But
Well,
and after I've looked at enough John Whites in colonial North Carolina,
right.
it's really nice to get one of the, to get a King Elliot.
I know how many people are named King out there. That's got to at least make it a little bit better.
This is true, but there's at least one other one in his time period. So I'm this in his area. So that makes me wonder a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, that strong family line out there.
And I wonder if the two families knew each other. Were they close
Oh,
enough?
absolutely. I'm always 100% sure. No, we're where it kind of comes in. If there was any intermarriage, I'm not sure where that would have been, but absolutely. I mean, given the location where these folks live, they absolutely knew each other. And there was a lot of intermarriage going on. And that's one of those where they were, right across the border, state border. So it takes researching in North Carolina and Virginia, but also it's like 2 counties on each side of the border. So it's like 4 counties and 2 states. And it gets a little crazy sometimes through there. But,
Poor Lizzie. She says, if you have cousins, poor me, connected but not related to anyone.
oh no.
You have cousins and you're still part of the WikiTree family, Lizzie. So it's okay.
That's right.
We're all connected somehow, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of information on the challenge itself now and
Sure.
what we do with it. So, we're going to go over our collaboration. Now, collaboration, of course, is key during the challenge, and that is what WikiTree is all about, collaborating. One of the ways that we do collaborate is to use a spreadsheet like you see on the left. And, we wind up with anywhere from 25 to 35, 40 people working on a tree during a week and
Wow.
from all over the world. So, we like people to please remember to list what profile you're working on. And that way somebody else doesn't go in and, try and research the same exact profile and maybe somebody loses their work. So that's really important. On the right hand side, that's our G2G post, which is our genealogist to genealogist forum. We put the great grandparents out there, and that way people can go out and list bounty points. If they have a question they're not in Discord, they want to put out there, sometimes just interesting finds. That's one of the ways that they can do that. And speaking of Discord, that is our biggest way of collaboration. And I don't know what we do without it. We used to use Google Hangouts for WikiTree, but we migrated over to Discord, and it's so much more user friendly, I think, and better features. And since, like I said, we are a global site, we have people that you're talking to people that are in Netherlands or Germany or wherever, all over the world. So at different times of the day, there's different people in there, and we cheer each other on, or we ask for a second set of eyes. We have people that just are really good at finding obituaries, and so they'll
Mhm.
sit there and watch the chat, and somebody's like, oh, I'm working on this profile, can somebody find the obituary? Oh, I got it, I'm right on it. So it's wonderful. Great way to keep track of everything. And then we have two ways of giving points, and it's not all about points, but the point systems help motivate, and it also kind of helps us keep track of our progress, how we're doing on the week, because we know how we did last week. So we have two ways of earning points. They can do the big points, which are the bounty points, and that's 10 points each, and that's for breaking a brick wall, first brick wall ancestor on each line. Ooh, so
Ooh,
we want to get lots of those for
go
Lisa.
after it.
And then the other way is individual points for nuclear families. So that would be siblings or children. And those points can really add up, just depending. You get some of these branches where there's just a lot of large families, and those points really add up. And then we look at the total scores at the end of the week. So since we did have the week off, we have no MVP to show off here. Sarah Callis, she's one of our members here that also does live casts, and so she's our supposed top one, but we're really not doing a top five. That's just what it would be. Um, and then just to go over things a little bit for those of you out there, Cheryl says not in alphabetical order. I don't know what I'm missing. Oh, how did Sarah end up first?
No.
um, yeah, Ben, she made the chart. She made that slide. So
That works.
so that's how that worked. For those of you that like numbers, we've been doing this, of course, since the first of the year. So for 2021, and some of these numbers are really amazing. Now, of course, our smallest ancestor list, and so that's direct ancestors attached to a person, was 28. And I think we know which one that one was. Our next smallest list was 58, Daniel Loftus's. Our largest ancestor list. This was incredible. Now, some of these people were already on, the profiles were already on WikiTree, and we connected to them, or we connected to lines that were built out. So it's not like we actually added this many. But Cece Moore, who also did not have a whole lot on WikiTree when she started, she has 3,039 direct ancestors now, which I know is incredible. I had to
Mhm.
look at the number twice. I was like, did I pull that report right? Yes, I did. She has a lot. And then the second largest was 2,391 belonging to Connie Knox. So here's the big, huge number. Now, keeping in mind, once again, this is direct ancestors only, but not just the ones we created during the challenge, the ones we connected to and hopefully improved. 22,483 since the start of the year. I mean, you guys are just
Wow.
amazing. They never cease to amaze me. And that's how many direct ancestors are attached to our guests yet. And we're not done with the year. So we still have plenty more fun to do. It's been really great. And this shows our challenge dashboard. Thank you, Steve Harris. He did a wonderful job pulling this together. But total edits, now that Lisa's, every time we go in and we change a date or add a source or we do something, that's our edit for the profile, and we keep track of
Okay.
those each week. So for total edits, WikiTreeers that have volunteered their time, of course, this is all free, 87,000 edits. I mean, it's just incredible. So average edits are 3,229. Bounty points, of course, we've broken 549 brick walls now. So that's over 5,000 bounty points. Average bounty points per guest, 211, so 21 brick walls. And you can see the numbers there. It's just incredible. And we couldn't do it without all the participants and also the viewers that give us motivation and keep us going, and also without the guests. So, oh, Betsy's reminding us, click like for the video. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions for Lisa? I have my thing up, so I'm not sure if any went by that I missed.
Okay.
Oh, Ben was pointing out there are about 5,000 profiles with King as the first name.
And I thought my guy was so unique.
Well, compared to the rest of the world now, that's still...
That's right. That's right.
Still not a lot of people, so that'll be great. Yeah, you wouldn't think there would be that many, though. That's incredible.
I know. I do. That's fun.
Well, I think we have got it then, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank all of the people participating in this week's challenge. I know you're eager to get out there. Some of them have probably already hopped off and started working on your branches. We get excited.
I don't have a problem with that.
I want to thank you, Lisa, for coming on, and also for participating this week and allowing us to do this. Thank everybody watching. And yeah, remind everybody that you can check out wikitree.com and subscribe to receive alerts. So, Lisa, we will see you back here next Wednesday.
I can't wait.
It's going to be exciting.
It's going to be hard to wait. Well, good luck, guys. Thank you.